I see that in marketing a lot too. These AI companies are talking very high level about their AI, but there really isn't going to understand it. And if your audience has to think and they're confused about what it is exactly what you guys do and how it works, then it just becomes a lot harder to close deals. Yeah, 100%.
You're listening to Brainwork Framework, a business and marketing podcast, brought to you by focus-biz.com.
Together, the scripts, the structure, building this content out. How is that working for you? Because I see you're doing a lot on YouTube now, right now.
I mean, I've learned a ton so far. I think this has been the most that I've been focused on content. Like I've pretty much figured out how to run ads, how to close deals, but like content was just the biggest bottleneck by far for me. It's been a huge learning curve. I feel like even in the past 30 days, I've just learned so much just from researching, just working with AI and doing things like that. But there's definitely a ton of room to grow, which is good.
No, it's exciting. That's one medium and tactic that a lot of people struggle with is putting themselves on camera because it's something they're not used to or they're not comfortable with yet. So to have to implement that into their strategy, there can be some hesitation to it because we're just kind of figuring things out as we go. But it's you have been helping to kind of nurture clients and attract new ones for you and at least add to your visibility.
Yeah, 100%. I think YouTube's probably the best just because I think the long form really helps. Honestly, I mean, the shorts are great, but I've never really seen the best. Like, for example, TikTok, I'm not going to get, I mean, maybe I get one or two people reaching out to me. Majority of people, it's just stupid comments and things like that.
Mhm.
Instagram, I get people here and there, but the best place that I'm getting is just from long form, just because I feel like the length that someone actually watches your content directly correlates with the amount of trust they have. If you're just watching shorts, it's like you got to scroll their entire page for you to go over 6 actual minutes of a YouTube video and cover that stuff. So,
Right, absolutely. And do you think it's in part to where your audience is because you most common you're helping B2B businesses typically with us with their growth and scaling of the systems and typically you're working some sort of equity deal. Do you find that, maybe that audience is just there more often or maybe they're just consuming the content, they know you like you trust you and then they're interested in learning more?
I'd say they're definitely more on YouTube. One thing that I'd point out too is I actually just started getting on X. So that's a huge, huge tech bubble. There's a bunch of tech guys, and even the amount of knowledge that I've learned going on there, like people will post threads, there'll be different AI founders, and they'll say, like, here's the AI tools that I use for this and this. And it's like the amount of times that I'm just saving those is crazy. So there's a lot of tech focused guys on X, which I kind of started to leverage.
Nice. I'm doing the same. I find whether I'm scrolling through TikTok, YouTube, or even Reddit, I'm taking screenshots whenever I'm like, okay, that's a good idea. Let me follow it.
Reddit's also a good one too, which I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible. For me, I was a business owner for like 7 years, and then I went back to school for marketing. And what they teach you in there is more the foundation as opposed to the real world experience. I feel like I've learned so much more from Facebook groups, these posts and YouTube videos of real life experience versus what's taught in like the traditional book system.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think once you understand the basic foundation of how marketing and sales works, it's like there's really not too much more to understand. But what I've felt is I've learned the most this year just because I think there's much AI information out there. It's like, well, I don't really understand this stuff. Here's how I can implement it versus all the other stuff that majority of business owners already know. And I feel like a lot of the things that you're going to learn in school, it's like I said, more foundational and you don't have people writing and updating the textbooks in 2026 with new information, which is unfortunate.
No, absolutely. And I feel like when I was in there in the social media class in 2022, they were like so excited. Hey, we just added TikTok to this, and I was like, oh wow, that was already like so popular years back. But it's true. Like, there's something to be said about hands-on experience versus that book experience.
Yeah, 100%. That's a big thing for entrepreneurs too. It's like, while reading is obviously a big thing, it's like you're going to learn 10 times, even just failing at something, which is very, very important.
I agree, absolutely. So with the audience that you're helping, these are SaaS founders, I love SaaS tools. I buy quite a few. There's some that I absolutely love and use every day. There's a few I bought because they sounded cool, and I don't know, just didn't fulfill what I thought it might. But there's a lot of tools that help like business owners save time and save money. Are there a few of the partners or like equity clients that you've worked with, or ones you're kind of like looking out for? Are they solving certain problems? Do they have certain functions?
Mhm.
Are there things you look for that, seem attractive for you, from an equity standpoint?
I think a big thing for me is just functionality outside of me just looking at the numbers. It's like, would I actually use this? Because if you conviction is everything in sales. So it's like if I'm going to be using on the day to day, it's going to be very very easy for me to sell. So, for example, I work with one company there. It's an AI receptionist, and I use that all the time. Not for like so much outbound, but more just confirming leads that come in and then just confirming appointments and things like that. So I work with them, but I also am able to use their software. And then I got a bigger deal that's coming up. I have a partner and we actually built it. So it's an AI sales role player. Majority of things that I teach when building sales teams is you got to continue to train and review your calls. So it has both those functions. You're able to train with an AI sales rep or an AI prospect per se, where it's going to give you feedback. It's going to say, hey, here's what you did well on, here's what you could improve on. And then it gives you a scale out of 1 on 100, how well you did. And then the flip, after every single sales call, you can plug in that file or whatever you have recorded, and it's going to be able to actually say, here's how you did, here's what you did well on, here's what you can improve on, here's why the deal didn't close, or here's exactly why the deal closed. And those are two things. The role player is coming out in March. So that's something that I'm very, very excited for because that's something that I use on the day to day. It's still in beta, but it's going to be very easy to market and sell.
Well, that sounds really cool having that sales role player because I feel like that's where a lot of businesses struggle is the sales piece. They do a lot of things well. They put a great offer together. They have clarity in their messaging, but it's the sales piece. Once they get one on one with a prospect, things kind of fall off. So the fact that you can one role play it and get like live feedback on how you did, that's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a big thing with the sales teams that I work with is like you could understand the framework, you can understand what you're selling, but a lot of sales reps, if they're not seasoned, they're just going to freeze up if a prospect has an objection. And it's the same thing with like public speaking. It's like you're only going to overcome that by actually just getting on stage and doing the thing. It's like you can practice in the mirror a million times, but you just got to go out and do it. So this AI role player, although you're not talking to a real human being and there's nothing it's not a real human, it's still mimicking it. And you can actually get feedback and real time approach it, which is good.
That is super smart. I don't know if this is either a good or bad business idea to potentially implement. And if it's not, we'll just cut it from the episode here. But something that inspired me is could that system be integrated into regular live sales calls almost in the same way like an AI note taker comes to join like a session? Could
That's
they come in and almost provide real time feedback? Because I'm seeing that being done from like people interviewing for jobs. Maybe they're not as
well,
qualified as they put on their resume, and they're like, "Oh yes, thank you," and the AI is providing live feedback on ways they could answer.
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I was talking with a buddy about that. So there's one software where it just does interviews, but it can work for sales calls. So that guy's very controversial. The company's called Cluely. So
Okay,
that's a big one. And that kid actually he got kicked out of Harvard and then he got kicked out of Columbia.
holy cow!
So he's very very controversial, but they're doing well. As far as the sales aspect goes, I think it would be detrimental to give that to a new sales rep because imagine if the AI something happens with the AI and they're just saying the wrong things. That's a perfect recipe for disaster if you're working with the new sales rep and they're just not learning and they're just trying to cheat off AI and then something goes wrong and they're just saying something random rather than just having a human conversation. Because all sales is you're really just having a human conversation. And if you're just relying too much on AI like a support like that, I think that could be more harmful than helpful.
Right. Yeah. Because they don't have as much experience yet to recognize when the AI either is hallucinating or that maybe not the direction we want to go. And I feel like AI, it's a great tool, but these are the experimental years. This is where we're testing things out and figuring out what's working or not. And through all my trials, it definitely takes a lot more training, a little bit of guidance. Not 100% yet, but it's been getting so much better. One of the benchmark tests I use is the Will Smith eating spaghetti, and man, that is just absolutely incredible now. Think of where that has gone and where things are going to be going in the future. I'm seeing AI being an essential integration, but to what extent, I think is up to you and the business and how you want to grow and scale.
Yeah, 100%. I think one thing too is like with there being so much opportunity with AI, there's also going to be something on the other side. For me, for example, it's like I'm using AI 24/7, but there's days where maybe I'm not taking sales calls, maybe I'm doing more like systems work and things like that to where I'm using a lot more AI and I'm maybe on ChatGPT or Claude for 6 straight hours and then I try to think on my own, and I'm just constantly just using ChatGPT, just trying to figure out, like, things that I could just think on my own. So, like, there's definitely a balance. I think you gotta use it for something that's gonna be helpful, but a lot of times it can be a crutch because sometimes I'm using it too much to where it's like, well, I kinda feel like I'm not even thinking on my own.
Right, and that's what a lot of people are worried about with new technology being added. If we're not being challenged to think critically or think for ourselves anymore, if we're offloading and outsourcing that to an AI tool, we need to make sure we're still practicing that because otherwise I feel like we're going to lose that ability.
Yeah, 100%.
And now, John, curious, are there things that SaaS companies or, these B2B businesses are doing wrong? I'm sure you've, met with a few, you've consulted on the front end and felt like, hey, this isn't a good fit. You're not in the right place yet. What are they doing wrong or what's not being done right that's kind of keeping them there?
That's a good question. There's a handful of things that I've seen. A big one that I see is people just trying to sell everything to everyone. I think that's probably the first step is if a business is failing, you gotta just look at what you're selling, and a big one is if you're trying to sell literally every single tool to any type of business, that's gonna be very, very tough because a beginner business owner, they always think, "Well, if I include 30 different tools and I can sell to every single niche, it's gonna be very, very easy." But in reality, you're just hurting yourself because it's a lot easier to build a better business and to actually charge more for what you're doing if you're specialized. Like, think about a general practitioner versus like a brain surgeon. It's the same thing. So I'd say that's number one is people just being super general. And then I'd say the biggest thing too is I work with a lot of business owners that they're stuck doing founder led sales. And a lot of these guys are very technical, which is great. For example, I worked with a guy who forgot which company he was at before, but he went to an Ivy League school. He's a big programmer. He built a great tool, but he was talking at a very, very high level technically on his sales calls to plumbing companies. So it's like you can just understand that majority of plumbing business owners are probably not going to understand like LLMs or very technical AI talk. So I see that's a very, very big problem is when you're not talking in the tone that is going to be very, very easy to understand for your audience. I see that in marketing a lot too. These AI companies are talking very high level about their AI, but they're really isn't going to understand it. And if your audience has to think and they're confused about what it is exactly what you guys do and how it works, then it just becomes a lot harder to close deals.
Absolutely. You definitely need to speak their language because if you're going all in on, the features and benefits instead of what it means for them and put it in a way that they can understand, it's lost messaging. They don't know how you're helping them, what it means for them. Oftentimes they don't know their next steps even. They're like, I'm just they don't have clarity on that offer, so they don't know what they're getting. And that's gonna kill a deal before it even starts.
Yeah, 100%.
And now, John, where can people find you and connect with you online?
Yeah. So like we were talking about before, majority of my content is typically on YouTube. So my YouTube is at John P. Mag. So it's my first name, John P as in Paul, which is my middle name, and then Mag, Mag. So that's my YouTube. If you want to reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook, same handle. And then LinkedIn is just my first and last name.
Wonderful. And we'll have those links available down in the show notes and in the description so everyone can get connected. And in that description, we'll also have a link to my new lead magnet that I'm excited about. It's the Growth Engine Blueprint. This is how I've built and scaled multiple six-figure businesses using the attract, convert, nurture, and amplify sort of method. So available for everyone down in the comments below. And you can also get connected with John. John, I was curious, what are you looking forward to most in 2026? You seem to have kind of built this system, this network around you. You're pushing this content out there. What are you looking forward to most in 2026?
2026, I am looking most forward to launching the AI sales trainer. I already talked about it before, but I just think for me, this is going to be a good partnership because we're getting funding, number one, and number two, it just speaks directly to my personal brand. So that's going to be a huge deal. Hopefully, I can grow it to become a great company, and hopefully, it can be very, very useful for other companies. It's been useful for the companies that I work with so far.
It's a proven strategy. You have experience, the knowledge that all wraps into it. And I love the content that you're putting out there on YouTube. I got a chance to watch a few shorts. I'm going to dive deeper into some of the longer form ones, but the topics that you cover, I think, are really going to resonate with your audience. This is exactly what people are looking for online, the resources, the tips and tricks, and you have a great way of communicating that to them.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. John, wanted to ask for our final question. Just having the floor for yourself, is there a piece of advice you'd want to share, to other business owners, entrepreneurs out there? Maybe they're struggling, going through something. Is there a piece of wisdom that you would share with them?
Let me speak wisely. I
Yeah,
got
right. Yeah.
number one is don't take financial advice from someone that you would never switch bank accounts with. That's number one. That's a Grant Cardone line. Number two would be the best business model is just the one that you stay in. So majority of business owners, it's very easy to get shiny object syndrome. It's like, I get it too all the time. Maybe I want to do something else. And I'm sure you get it as well. It's very easy to get shiny object syndrome with social media, but in reality, there's no best business model. Every business model has its own shit, but the one that you're going to succeed in the most is just the one that you've been doing the longest. Because after all, there is a guy that's a billionaire who made it off creating a pool noodle. So that's something to think about.
Right. Sometimes I feel like business owners throw in the towel a little too quickly. They don't stick with it. They don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So they lose confidence in what they're offering. And without having that direction, they're not confident in continuing it. Sometimes it just takes a little more time, a little more effort, and maybe a change up to the strategy. So I definitely agree. People need to stick with it for them to see it through.
Exactly. 100%.
John, you've been doing some great work out there. So excited to watch your journey. Make sure you check out the links in the show notes and the description so you can find out more about John's offer. Congratulations with everything you've done. Keep up the great work. And we're looking forward to a great 2026 for you.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, absolutely.